All right, everybody, how are you doing? This is S. Anthony Thomas. This is the S. Anthony Says podcast, episode number 485. This episode will be called The Used Tos versus the Stills. Now, what does that mean? People that used to be able to do something and people that still do something. And I'll explain what I'm talking about right now. Now, people are surprised. I know I've been surprised in many cases how much super talent is actually around people. You don't realize how talented somebody is because you're not around them when they display their talent at full force. And because you don't get to see that, sometimes we overestimate the abilities of people who are better than average and not as good as a professional. Like, say for the sake of argument, you've never sat in a room and had Whitney Houston or Celine Dion or Mariah Carey or somebody like that sit right next to you and sing. Because if you did, you'll be listening to some of the best, most talented, most technically proficient singers that have ever walked the face of the earth, who blow the doors off of virtually everyone else who ever sang. And you've never sat next to that person and listened to that. Now, I've been around some famous people, and I've been around people who are super duper talented. And when they're sitting right next to you singing, or say it's a person who's in a band, a famous band, and they're playing their instrument, and you listen to them, you realize, oh, that's why they're famous, right? But the thing is, sometimes you're around someone who's better than the average person. Like maybe you're playing basketball at the gym and some guy comes in and he was the guy that came off the bench in high school for a national championship team or a team that was really, really good. And of course, he played organized basketball against some of the best basketball players of that level, and you never played at that level. So of course, when you watch this guy play basketball, his skills are so far above yours. You're looking at this guy like, man, this guy is great. He could probably be in the NBA. No, because if he could be in the NBA, he probably would be in the NBA. He's better than you and better than most, but not better than them. You probably have been sitting next to somebody who sings better than the average person. Are they as good as Mariah Carey? Are they as good as Whitney Houston? Are they as good as Celine Dion or somebody like that? Heck no. But they're better than you and they're better than most. So you're sitting there going, man, this person should probably be one of the biggest singers. No, they're not as good as those people. And it's the same thing. You know, even if you drop it down a level, and just someone who's just very, very competent, high level professional versus someone who kind of wants to try the thing. Now, in the world of comedy, of stand-up comedy, I was a still at one point, but now I'm a used to. I'll be a going back and I'll be a still again at some point. But right now I'm a used to because I haven't done actual stand-up comedy in a while. But I was pretty daggone good at it. I did a couple national TV programs and some radio. I've done some things. My resume looks okay. All right. So I was pretty daggone good at it. And back when I was still active performing, I got asked by somebody to teach a comedy class. And I taught the comedy class. And I took it very seriously. I wrote out a lesson plan. I gave them instructions. I told them what to do. I answered all questions. I was there whenever they needed me. So we teach the class and we have the comedy show, right? And there was one guy there who was just a little bit arrogant because he's funny around his friends, right? He breaks his friends up. So he's not listening to some of the instructions, right? We go through the whole class. They all passed, good scores. We do the graduation show. Now, a lot of times when you have a show like this, it's in the contest format. And what that means is they're competing against each other for a prize. You win this number of dollars. You win this number of bookings. But this was just a graduation show. So we had hundreds of people there and they were all friends and relatives of the performers. And because they were not competing against each other, because sometimes when the people are competing against each other, all the other people will not laugh and show love to the people that their relative is competing against. So sometimes you'll have little pockets of people laughing and everyone else sitting there stone faced, intentionally not giving love to the other performers. But in this particular case, everybody was having a great time. They were clapping and laughing and stomping their feet for everybody, including their relatives. And it was a beautiful thing to see. And they called me on the stage. Here's one of our teachers. Yay. Right. Not realizing that I was going to do my set after. I was like, I don't want to come up now because I'm performing in the show. So I go up and I do my thing. And of course it goes well, fantastic, great. And I shake the hands and I hug everybody. And this guy who was in the class was, cause I had taught a few comedy classes. And this particular guy was a little arrogant, but it was okay. I mean, he was a little hyped up. He had just done a show. It went really well. And he thinks that that's how it's going to go all the time. Ooh, the world is about to give him a lesson as effective as the lessons that I had given him. 6 months goes by. I'm doing a private show on a Saturday. I had some private shows on Friday. I had one private show on Saturday. So I had pretty much the rest of the evening off. Buddy of mine calls me. Hey, man, I'm in town, man. I said, oh, that's right. I forgot you were in town. Yeah, man. Why don't you come hang out at the show, my second show, and we'll go get something to eat afterwards. Cool. I show up. Oh, I forgot. Sorry. When he called me to say come to the show, he was complaining about one of the acts on the show. In a comedy show, there's the MC, which is the first person, that's the host. 15 minutes is usually what they do. There's the middle or feature. It's either feature / middle, the same thing. They do 30 minutes in the middle of the show. And then there's the headliner who does 45 minutes. My friend was the headliner. He was complaining about the feature on the show not being good enough, but having good spots, but not being good enough. I show up. We hang out, we high five, we bro hug, and he's telling me about, man, you got to see this dude, man. This guy's a pain in the butt, bro. I mean, he did a couple good shows Friday. They weren't that good, but he thinks he's like he thinks he's the next coming up. And I forgot what iconic comic he mentioned, but that guy thought he was that good already. And he goes, man, he's been such an ass, man. It's like I said, I almost wanted to have him kicked off the show, but it's like he's such an ass, man. He really thinks he's all special and everything, and this, that, and the other, boop, 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 boop. I turn around and I see my students. Oh, I say to my boy, oh, dude. He goes, what? I go, remember that comedy class I did like 6-7 months ago? He goes, no, bro. I'm like, yeah. He goes, that Mother Jugs and Speed. He didn't say Mother Jugs and Speed. That Mother Jugs and Speed was in your class? I said, yeah. I said, I thought you said the class was good. I said, it did go well. And he goes, yeah, but that was like their friends and family. Like, I know. I go, so this fool thinks he's going to get the same response from people that don't know him that he got from his friends and family. He begins laughing. I said, man, he's an idiot. Man. I said, don't let him see me. I said, let's go talk someplace else. I don't want him to see me, man. MC goes on. My ex-student goes on. And this time, because he had some decent shows earlier, he goes into arrogance mode. He goes on stage, is going pretty well for the first 5 minutes, and then he gets in arrogant mode because he did a bit that he liked, but the audience didn't like, and he started becoming annoying to them and rude to them. And all of a sudden, when you were hearing laughs in the room, and it was this long stretch of time where it was eerily quiet, and I didn't know what was going on. And my boy, the headliner, looks in the window and he looks back at me with this look of horror on his face. He goes into the back because he knows he's going to be getting called up soon. I walk in because I want to watch my friend's set, and I'm in the back watching my ex-student bomb his ass off. I mean, it was quiet in that room because if you're a nice person on stage and you're not doing that well, your jokes are just kind of okay, audiences are nice enough people. They'll give you a little bit of chuckle. You know, a few people will laugh just to make you feel better, but they'll at least show you some attentiveness. And you might even get people, you're doing good, keep going, man. You might even get that. But they hated his guts. I literally could hear stomachs grumbling. That's how quiet it was. I could hear ass cheeks moving in the seat. I'm not talking about the creak of the seat. I'm talking about the literal asses moving. I could hear his feet on the stage, the little squeaking of walking back and forth across the stage. I could hear the mic cord on the floor as he turned back and forth as he was talking, and people were not even looking at him. They weren't even disrespectfully having conversations with each other. They were looking at his punk ass with hatred in their heart. You could feel the tension in the room. And my boy who's standing to my right, he knows he's got to go on after that. And he's looking at me like I did it. He was kind of looking at me slightly angry as if I'm sitting there going, I'm just as good as you as a headliner. You think, that's what I'm saying with my face. You really think I condone this? And then I looked at him as if to say, really, bro? And he looked at me. Then he started chuckling because he realized, of course, this is not my fault. The guy is on stage bombing his behind off. I see the person giving him the light to let him know that he has 3 minutes left. And as the guy hits the light, the guy shooting the light to the commenter, they usually flash a light in your face, a flashlight that's called getting the light, that lets you know your time is up. And if usually you know how long your last bit is. So you will tell the person, give me a 3-minute light or 5-minute light or whatever. So when you get the light, you know that's how much time you had left. Unfortunately, the guy who was giving him the light was standing next to me. I did not know that. So he turns to see the light. And he sees me, and he's already bombing his brains off. And now he sees his instructor in the back watching him bomb his nuts off. I'm going to jump out of the story for a minute. There was a movie called Fearless starring Jet Li. It was a fantastic film. And in a nutshell, he was a great fighter. He got arrogant. He got his comeuppance, and then he was coming back to the world with a new mindset. And he was walking into a town, and 2 of his students who he had taught were now, without his guidance, being idiots. They were beating up people, roughing people up, being arrogant in a way that he would not condone. As they were roughing up some citizens, they turned and saw him standing there, and he had a look of disapproval and shame on his face. He puts his head down and shakes his head, and they go, "Oh, teacher, oh no, we're sorry." They run across the road, fall to their knees in front of him, and beg for his forgiveness. It's an interesting part of the movie. We're going to go back to the story. In this particular scenario, I'm Jet Li, and he's the arrogant student. He's on stage doing things I told him not to do, and he's being arrogant, and he obviously hadn't put in the work, and he sees me standing there. I don't know what the expression on my face was. I don't know. I don't remember whether I put my head down or shook my head. I don't know, but there must have been some kind of disapproval on my face, because I watched a guy's soul ease out of his body like smoke out of the front of a cigarette. Fortunately, it was almost time for him to get off. He didn't even do his whole 3 minutes. He finished whatever that lame joke he was telling. It was really bad. And he walked off the stage. And this is how bad he did. Even if you bomb your nuts off on stage and you suck, if you tried and it just didn't work, everybody's been at their job and had a bad day. The audiences can empathize even if they don't like your set, and they will still politely give you a little tap applause as you walked off the stage. They didn't give his ass a tap applause. Nobody clapped. Nobody. There was nothing. And you could hear him walk down the steps off the stage. You can hear the door open when he walked out of the room. The MC comes back on stage. I forgot what he said, but whatever it was, the crowd goes right back to normal. Yeah! You ready for your headliner tonight? Yeah! I look over at my friend, and he did a fake brow, you wipe your hand across your forehead like, phew. He did one of those, and we started laughing at each other, because he's like, thank goodness it's not going to affect me. He goes on stage and smokes the place. Of course, he's a great guy, great comedian. I walk out of the room, and he's sitting there, my former student, and he's looking at me. And just like that Jet Li thing where the guys ran across the road and dropped down to their knees, I'm sorry, teacher. Well, he didn't drop down on his knees, but he did immediately come up to me, and he goes, I bleeped up, didn't I? And I go, yeah. He says, yeah, I did some stuff you told me not to do, and I guess I deserve what happened to me. I said, well, I would never want to say that somebody deserves that, I said, but then I explained to him what he did wrong. And he nodded his head, and I shook his hand, and then he just walked out the room. I think he had to come back to get paid. He was so humiliated by that performance. He left, and from what I understand, he had to come all the way back to the town to get his money because he didn't get his check before he left. But the thing was, he thought he was better than he was. And a lot of times people think they're better than they actually are. People underestimate their talents, and sometimes people overestimate their talents. And the reason I was thinking about this is because I saw a guy in my old neighborhood back when I lived in my previous neighborhood. And then the reason that this episode is called The Used to versus the Stills is I know that there are people in the hood that have talent that is overlooked sometimes. right? Because you run across people that used to be something. They used to do something. I knew guys that used to be mechanics. They were master level mechanics, but they did something dumb. They got drunk on the job, got into a fight with a manager, did something, and they got fired. And then the word got out and they couldn't get a job in a mechanic shop in the tri-state area because the word was put out. Or a guy was a plumber and some crap like that, and he came from a rough neighborhood, and even though he was prospering as a plumber, the guy stole some supplies, was making a good living as a plumber, stole a couple of things. It wasn't even a lot of stuff that he stole, but if you're stealing, people are going to can your ass. He stole something and now he can't get a job as a plumber. The word was put out, right? So you always have those dudes in the hood. And your car gets broken. And then this guy comes in and he's got like a toothpick and a pack of gum and he fixes your car as good as the shop does. He could do that. He's a master mechanic. And I remember one time I got my car fixed by a guy who lived 2 blocks down from me, who was a great mechanic. And I would drive my car, and you could do it out in front of the house because I lived in Los Angeles in LA and Hollywood at the time. And he would just fix the damn car, right? So one time I go back to the mechanic and he notices that someone else had worked on the car and it wasn't him. And he was kind of mad. Hey man, what are you doing, Mr. Thomas? Did you do this yourself? He was giving me a hard time because he thought I did. I go, I didn't do it. Well, I can see here that the double quadruple has been touched and normally it's at floopity-floop %, but the double quintuple was touched with the stuff with the thing. And I go, no, my neighbor did. Your neighbor did it. You give Mr. Thomas. You can't let your neighbors go around and touch the stuff and the stuff with the thing. I said, he's right there. Hey buddy, you can't do this. What are you doing, man? Has to be touched by a mechanic with the double, quadruple, and quintuple certification from the couple. He goes, I used to have a quadruple, quintuple, and double certification. Used to? Yeah, well, you don't have it, and I still got it. And that turned into it didn't turn into a fist fight, but it turned into an argument. This guy used to have the certification because he used to be, until he got fired from his job, he was just as good as this guy. In fact, he fixed the thing perfectly because the guy's manager comes out and goes, I know you don't want anybody else touching the car, Jimmy, but this is done perfectly. If he says he's a master mechanic, judging by this work, I would say he is a master mechanic, or at least he used to be. You know what I'm saying? You need to apologize to Mr. Thomas. You need to apologize to that guy right there. And he apologized. He was arrogant because he was shocked that this guy that didn't look like anything to him had the same skill level. And it's the same thing that happened to my house when there was a plumber. I found the guy. He used to be a master plumber. He used to be this, that, and the other one. And the plumber that was there the time before comes in and goes, hey, the last time I was here, you didn't have a floop-de-floop with your joop-de-joop. What the heck happened? Well, one of my buddy's friends fixed it. Oh, come on. You know what? You got to make sure that you let the professionals touch this because, this guy, he did this wrong, that wrong. First of all, he didn't do anything wrong, but the guy was just trying to make sure that he got the money and because he charged much more. Because if you notice in the hood, the used tos always charge less than the stills. The people that are still master mechanics, still plumbers, still master plumbers are going to charge more. And they should because of their skill level, because of their talent, because of the hard work they put in, because of their license. But you got to understand, sometimes the used tos know what they're talking about. And as a used to, when it comes to stand-up comedy, I still remember when I was talking to that kid, telling him what he was doing wrong. Because at the time I was a still. But right now I'm a used to. And if I still saw something like that, and I had a situation like that, where the person didn't realize who I was, didn't realize how good I used to be, I saw the guy doing stand-up comedy, and he was asking people questions, and the people who was asking questions had less years in the game than I had. And I mean by a lot. I had triple the time in the game that these people had. He asked them questions. And they were trying to answer him. They kind of answered him. But I knew they were giving him information that wasn't exactly going to work for him. And I was like, should I even say anything? Because I haven't done stand-up comedy in a long time, but I know what I'm doing is. All right. And I gave him some tips and he was polite. And as I walked away, I could hear, it's like, who is that dude, man? I don't see him around, man. I don't even know who that dude is. Gonna talk about like he knows something. Who is that dude? And he's being disrespectful. And I can overhear him and I'm going, why did I help this guy? Why did I help? I tried to give this information. And another comic walked up and he goes, what did the guy say? And he told him what I said. And he goes, well, he told you right. What are you talking about? Well, how does he know? And they say, well, who are you talking about? That guy over there. And he goes, him? Yeah. Do you know who that is? No, I don't know. That's S. Anthony Thomas, man. Never heard of S. Anthony Thomas. He started out when I started out. He was one of the best comics in the business. Just because he didn't become famous doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's talking about. And if he tells you to do something, you should probably listen to him. Oh, so he was that good? Yeah, he was. Oh, I ain't know that. Yeah. Oh, well, and I can hear him because the guy learned how to whisper and I don't know where he learned how to whisper, whatever it was. He needs to go back and take another class. I could hear his loud ass and I'm trying not to chuckle, and then when they walk away, I walk over to the guy and say, hey man, hey, what's going on, man? Yeah, man. This young guy. I said, no, I overheard. He goes, you heard him? I said, yeah. He goes, oh, I said, so you heard what I said? I said, yeah, I heard what you said. And I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that. No, man, no problem. No, you my boy and everything like that. You was that dude back in the day. I said, yeah. So we started hanging out and I was telling him the story about the other person in the class. And I told him the story and he started laughing about it because he had heard about it. But sometimes there's talent, like I said, there's talent around us. And even if a person just used to do something, there might be a situation where they really know what they're talking about. Somebody who's a retired doctor can still consult if he or she is still looking at the medical journals. He or she is still auditing surgeries. They still know what they're talking about. They could teach a class. If you're a doctor, you have knowledge and experience. In my case is a former active stand-up comic who will again be an active stand-up comic. I have decades and decades in the game. I know what I'm talking about. As someone who's been doing podcasting for 10 years, I have a decade in the game. I know what I'm talking about. And I'm sure you've done something and you've gotten really good at it and some schmuck comes up afterwards who's been doing it 8 seconds, thinks they know better than you. Well, all I would say is just take it easy on them. Don't be hard on him, right? He doesn't know you're a still. He or she probably thinks you're a used to. But what I would say is respect the used tos. They do know some things. Okay? They may not be a still, but being a used to means you did do it at some point and you do have some things to say. Am I right? Of course I am. Well, folks, this has been the S. Anthony Says podcast. Much love to you for coming and listening. I appreciate coming back. I appreciate you more than you know. And I need you to do me a favor. If you love this podcast, and you do me a favor. Rate and review this podcast 5 stars, please. If you love this podcast, and you do me a favor. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to listen to this podcast. If you love this podcast, and you do. You and I both know when you're in your car and traffic blows, traffic sucks, just start streaming this podcast in your car. I'll talk to you while you're in traffic. Why should traffic suck? Okay? Pull up Spotify, whatever you got in your car, and just burn through all of these old episodes. I will unstink the traffic for you because I'm that type of guy. Much love to you, my friends. I will see you again next time. Thank you for listening to the S. Anthony Says podcast. I am S. Anthony Thomas. Much love to you all and see you next time. Take care.